Don't be afraid of double stop.
With the double stops here coming up.
Some double stops.
Double stops.
Double stops.
If you've been playing the violin for even a short period of time, I'm sure you've already discovered just how difficult it can be to play even just a line of single notes in tune. Play for much longer and you'll soon find out that before long you'll have to start playing 2, 3, and sometimes even 4 notes at once, and they all have to line up with each other. And as I might have demonstrated in a previous tone-based video, a lot of this is much more difficult than a great artist over at tonebase make it look. Thankfully, the artists over at tonebase are willing to share their secrets with us. I've divided this video up into 4 sections: basics of double stops, thirds, octaves and tenths, and chords. I encourage you, after of course liking this video and subscribing to the channel, to go back after you've watched the entire video and watch the sections that are most applicable to what you happen to be working on in double stops. And of course, if you like the clips from this video, go to tonebase.co/violin and sign up for your 14-day free trial so you can watch the full masterclasses from which I took all of the clips for this video. I've been Tobias Murphy for Tonebase Violin, and now, on to the masters.
So why do we practice double stops? Good question. It is much more valuable for your hand to learn a position where it can play multiple notes in tune simultaneously.
Every double stop is a shape. I don't think of them as individual notes.
So it kind of creates a framework for your hand where more than one note can be in tune simultaneously.
It's a large variety, but it's limited amount of shapes that you have to memorize. Shape, 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 shape.
I try to keep always the same angle because it's the least commotion.
And so on. If you're completely new to double stops, the first thing I would do is practice them as separate notes and then together like this.
So one of the ways I make my students practice double stops is playing one note at a time. And you put them down on harmonics, and you only allow the fingers to press when the bow comes down. So you press together, then you release. You touch the strings on harmonics, and then you press.
And when you practice your thirds, there's sort of another trick that you can do to maximize the number of fingers that are in tune simultaneously. So what I do is, the next one is going to be, I first do this. So you see how I'm, rather than playing a third followed by another third, I'm playing a third, and then I put down only the upper finger, creating a fourth. So by doing that, I'm actually making sure that at one point, 3 notes are in tune simultaneously, because I've created this, and then I've checked a third finger.
There must be a better way of getting double stops. For instance, the fingering in Paganini. How many shifts? 5 or 6.
And that came from thinking about the hand position? Or?
Yes. I mean, there's not a single shift.
This is one that we often will play, and here. Bad idea.
So non-fingered octaves, the key is holding the inner fingers under the 4th finger. So I feel 2, 3, and 4 kind of together. They're touching each other and they're pressing on the string equally. So that way you feel the shape and your pinky is supported and doesn't have to tense up. So rather than, which to me is much harder to control.
The common cheat that you see sometimes is the idea of playing the lower notes of octaves louder than the upper notes. And that can work up to a point, but I think it becomes a problem. Sometimes I've seen violinists play where I no longer hear the upper notes. I'm hearing like,
And sometimes I've cheated a little bit. I go.
And it sounds in tune, but it's no longer an octave.
And one way is to play what he wrote, but it sounds disjunct to me. So when I want to get enough momentum in the musical approach,
If you do that, you have to make sure that it's still an octave.
the honest way is sometimes I'm a little dishonest.
As we go to the tenths, there's two general approaches. One is to really practice them and try to get every single pitch exactly right. Another approach is just to think, okay, where are the main spots that I have to reach? And then just slide. And people will sometimes just shake the hand.
Even if you play a tenth, you create a shape in the air, but you're not pressing down. You can still go. So you never anchor a finger against the fingerboard to stretch. You create the spread in the air, and then you gently touch the strings.
So when I have a choice, I can always choose between squeezing and stretching. For me, squeezing is always has a priority. Why? Because the natural thing after you squeeze is to open up, and you go back to normal.
And then just relax, yeah.
Very relaxed.
So that concept of origami shapes, it also works for chords. So when I think of chords, I don't think of individual notes. I think of folding the hand into a shape. So rather than doing this.
For another example,
Yes.
when you have this part, so how do you try to catch that and release that?
Again, you put the bow on the string. Hold it there. I put the pressure, anytime I put the pressure on the string and then the release, I will not get any scratching. But I will get a very powerful blow. It's like, boxers, they do another thing. Boom! And the guy's down.
Yeah.
You don't need to push your punch. Once you touch somebody, you don't need to press. It's not wrestling.
Yeah.
Boxing is a hit that knocks you down.
So the way I roll these chords has to have a very specific kind of timing. And the way I do that, I lift my bow and I articulate the very bottom. And then I whip.
So there's this famously difficult place in the first minuet. That place right there, because of that fifth, right? I've been playing it with just my 3 and 4 there for a long time because I find that just the lack of a shift really helps me. It helps me to just stay in first position right there. If you're just absolutely not able to make that 4th finger work, then, doing it with a 2-3-3 is another good option. But I think it's rare for people to try it with the 3-4-4. And I think it's worth at least a try just because the less you move, generally, I think the lower risk.
It's actually a lot simpler than it looks.
Some double stops.